Get excited for this red hot show, the hottest one yet. Today we've got the logistical powerhouse behind 3 global experiments, a man whose dance moves will blow your mind and make your inner child come out and play. He's the chairman of Blazing Swan, and he likes to get naked. Hello to all you creative geniuses out there. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Art on Fire, a connective podcast for participants of events that focus on community, self-expression, self-reliance. Come tell a new story. Be part of telling a new story. Join the community on Patreon. The more, the merrier. We need all the people there we can get. A person telling a beautiful new story is Pasan Tenakoon, the chairman of Blazing Swan, the West Australian regional Burning Man event. He has had the special challenge of running the creative event throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and has been at the helm while 2 events were cancelled in response to government mandates. Despite that, the organisation is healthy, some say thriving, and committee members are thoroughly optimistic about the future. That's partially due to Pasan's efforts to hope for the best but plan for the worst. He's a guy who understands and devotes himself to the hard logistical work behind the scenes that make alternative realities possible. And he has been putting the skill to work not just at Blazing Swan, but also at a host of other global events and festivals. As the leading member of the Liberators, Pasan has co-created the world's largest eye contact experiment, World Dance Day and World Singing Day, as well as a regular ecstatic dance event and a suite of social experiments now trending on YouTube. He's also the coordinator behind Blissfest, a 3-day festival focused on human connection and interactive surprises. Pasan brings the logic and sets the foundation so out there magical events can happen. And that may be because Pasan, by day, is also an engineer working for Main Roads. He's book smart, intelligent, and can apply calculations-based approaches that will enable people to address the cold, hard facts that would otherwise stop creative events dead. Let's get into it. To get warmed up for the show, I'd like you to join me in the Genius Ignition system. I guarantee that 100% of the time that you participate in this activity, you will take something huge away from this show. And this is how it works. I need you to rub your hands together wherever you are. Rub them. Unless you're driving, rub them together. Rub them. Get yourself warmed up. Get yourself warmed up. And in 3, 2, 1, we will all do a simultaneous clap and we'll make the declaration. 3, 2, 1. I've touched a genius. Memorize that declaration. Yes. Remind yourselves of it. Thank you for joining this show. Let's get into it.
G'day, Pasan.
Hello.
Man, thank you so much for coming down. I'm so excited to be able to have this conversation with you. It's I've been looking forward to it a lot.
We've been excited as well, and very happy to be here in this beautiful studio of yours. Yeah.
Wicked.
Cool.
So we're like, I don't know, I guess 3-ish weeks out from when Blaze would have started, time, I guess about now people would have been mobilizing to site, and that's no longer. First up, I want to say, man, thank you so much for the stuff that you do, for the community and for the work that you guys do. It's really beautiful. I've really enjoyed seeing the energy in the community and how excited everyone was and is, and how optimistic everyone was and is for Blaze as an organization, despite everything that's going on. So huge thank you for that. But how are you?
Yeah, feel it. Well, and thanks so much for those words. Really appreciate it as well. And at the moment, I'm feeling great. I just recovered from COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And also been relieved as well. Like I said, there was going to be a lot of work happening right now. The lead up to Blaze, getting all the stuff mobilized on site, and it's pretty much crunch time now. And it was going to be one of the hardest crunch times ever because of the whole COVID stuff and all the uncertainty. So myself, and I share this with a lot of other people behind the scenes as well, whilst it is a bit devastating that, we're not going to be blazing this year, at the same time we were kind of spared of the nightmare that was to come, I suppose, in terms of all the work behind the scenes. And so it's just one of those things that it's a very difficult year, but you got to hope for the best next year, and with these kind of things, and just rest assured that a lot of the work that we did and all the hard work that we put in, even though we can't blaze this year because of the restrictions, we can still transfer all that work and effort onto next year and blaze brighter.
for anyone that is listening, the restriction that came into place that I think was the one that broke the event was a new restriction that essentially capped out events at 500 people, and Blaze was going to be at a 3,000 to 4,000 if I understand correctly. So that kind of immediately made the events on the wrong side of the mandates. Is that how
Pretty
you'd
much,
say?
yeah.
And then, but even before that, it was already a challenging situation. So WA, or Western Australia, is also known as a wait a while state that's always like catching up with the rest of the world and significantly behind the rest of the world in many things. And so while a lot of the world appears to be relaxing on a lot of things, WA is currently in that very high level of contact tracing, very high levels of checking in and checking out of places using an app, very high level of communicating close contacts, which, like, even before the event began, I was like, this just seems like a nightmarish situation to have 3,000 people, and the inevitability that someone there is going to have COVID, I would say, is in 100%.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, how? Like, how do you interpret the law to do what's legal and at the same time what's sensible and what's practical, and how do you even apply a logic to it? So it seemed really tricky.
Yep. It was tricky, and like it was challenging, and a lot of us liked that challenge. But yeah, it's no doubt that it was going to be a tricky operation. Like I said, it was pretty much guaranteed someone would have COVID at Blaze, and knowing the community, the weird and wonderful community that we have, things tend to spread. A disease like that would spread a lot quicker in Blaze than it would anywhere else.
Yeah, we like a good bit boogie, we like a good hug, and we move around like very fast and frequently.
Exactly, yeah. So just having to like have those variables, but also have a plan in place and have a justification in place that, like, you know, and all the measures that we have to take.
Oh gosh, that sounds like a headache.
Happen so that the government is happy, the state sort of the health department is happy, and everyone's happy whilst we run and have a great time at Blaze, and just balancing that. And it was going to be a very difficult. It was a difficult road, and it was going to be a very difficult road ahead as well.
Oh man, it sounds so. It just sounds so tricky. It sounds so challenging. Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the community who were going to come? So you're obviously, no, I assume, in very frequent contact with the Blaze committee and the Inner Circle, and through that the theme camp leads, and then there's concentric rings in the organization, and you're very connected with the highest level organizers, and then it's a few degrees away. Is there anything you'd love to be able to say about how everything's gone to everyone else, or what's coming up in the future?
I think I'd like to say that, don't lose hope that, we won't be blazing this year, but next year, thanks to, a lot of the hard work, a lot of the amazing people behind the scenes have put in, we now have more time, and we have done a lot of work that would make next year amazing and incredible, and everyone's going to be having a fantastic time there. It's also there's people who in our community who've been Blazers for a long time who are hoping to come back this year, because unfortunately our 2020 event was cancelled as well, and the 2021 event we had to cut down in numbers, so unfortunately a lot of our people in the community missed out on coming. I'd really like to acknowledge those people who now missed out on potentially 3 years worth of blazing, and just keep your hopes up that next year you'll finally be able to come back, and for the new Blazers as well, it's worth the wait. I really have a fantastic
for some of them
life.
It's probably been a bit of a tease. There's definitely a few people who are like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to do this for so long now.
Exactly. And something important I'd say as well, the best way you can be involved, whether you're a new Blazer or an old Blazer, is by volunteering. And we are a 100% volunteer run organization. That's one of the common things about being a burn.
Yep.
And we're only as strong, and we can only do as much with how many volunteers we have. So the more volunteers we have on board, the better the event will be. And that's something that, like, a lot of people, it'll be good to hear that it's communal effort, one of our highest principles. Blaze.
Where's the area in particular that you're like, man, I really wish someone could help me with this?
Yeah, I guess, like, interestingly, we were tracking a lot of the volunteer counts, like, in the lead up to the event, and areas that we were, I guess, short on hands was one that comes to mind was the Rangers. Definitely, that's an amazing team in Blaze where they're like the community liaison kind of people. They walk around and interact with people, build social capital, and really sort of engage with the community and use that engagement and sort of that special kind of like rapport you get with people of Blaze to solve problems or fix like unsafe situations and really help the community grow and learn and uphold the 11 principles. And that's kind of what that team is about. So it is quite and it's one of the things that we need a lot of them, because their run shifts every like hour of the event, and there's multiple teams of them running at the same time. So we need a lot of volunteers for that team. So to avoid few people from doing many hours. So that's definitely a team we would like more. And also we'd like more on the build as well, like the people, we call them DUI these days, Department of Utilities and Infrastructure. They go up in advance of the event three weeks ahead, setting up all the roads, setting up all the fencing, pickets, and like entrance gates, gaff structures, all of that stuff. And there's a lot of hard work involved in building the city. And turning dust into dreams, and that's the team. Also, like, the more you have there in advance of the event, then the quicker it is for everyone. So that not like the few people that are there aren't stressed out trying to do the work of 20 people.
Yeah,
by
for
themselves.
sure.
Yeah.
The first time I made it to the events, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it just blew me away to see everything there, as it does for everyone, I guess. And at least I hope. And then a few years later, I got to be part of the temple build. And then while I was doing that, I was there early with that DUI crew, watching everything get assembled and then seeing how much work actually goes into running power lines and placing porta potties and bringing bulk water out and working out where your generators are going to be, digging trenches, making the layout of the place. It's a really mechanical, logical, it's a tough job. It's a tough job, and people working really hard out there in pretty harsh conditions as well. And then the Blaze organization, in the past when I was there, Steen was the chef who used to look after everyone extremely well. So that was quite lovely to be able to come back to good food and have that. So it's a wonderful experience for anyone who's wanting that. Between now and next Blaze, are there areas that you'd like that would be great for people to jump in on? Because now that next Blaze is some time away.
Yeah, I suppose there's always people at the moment, there's a lot of work happening in terms of the comms and the ticketing kind of stuff, a lot of admin work that's going on, and document writing as well. There's a lot of last year for this year there was about 35 odd documents that we had to write up to send through to the Shire, and those are all the different approvals and different sort of risk management documents and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that kind of work that goes on way in advance of the event. And then the closer it gets to the event, that's when we need a lot of the other sort of staff that help run the event, your rangers, your event managers, and the build crews and the like. We're pretty lucky that we have an amazing team of leads at the moment, because that's something that we struggled with a lot in past years as well, filling all the leadership positions, because we had situations where we had single people just managing multiple departments, and that's something that we've thankfully been able to change in the last year or so. So each sort of area has a dedicated person responsible for that area, and they've taken their roles on very well. And whether it be things like volunteer administration or running DUI or running the build teams or running like the rangers or the greeters or the gate team and like an et cetera. There's about 30 odd leads at the moment in the organisation, each with their own team. And they're all amazing to work with. They work really well with each other as well. So yeah, it's a fantastic sort of culture now we have behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, cool. So on the playa, you're sometimes referred to as Monkey Man. Where did Monkey Man come from?
Yeah, Monkey Man. Yeah, so that was I think it was the first it was the second Blazing Swan that I was at, and there's this well-known event there called the Grundy Walkoff, and it's like probably the most famous kind of catwalk, striptease, kind of ridiculous, like full self-expression show that happens every year. Like everyone gets to, like they pack out the tent. Back then it was at this like amazing big theme camp called Papasans, and like everyone sort of dresses up in their most ridiculous outfits and costumes and create these cool routines. My entrant to that show was me in my ape suit, which is something that like I have been known for a lot in walking around the playa in an ape suit, and it's big orangutan. And like for my show, I basically got up onto stage. I was in this hood sort of figure so that you couldn't really see what was under it. And then when the show starts, just pull the hood off and rip the big sort of O-ring thing, and underneath was an ape. Then I was basically proceeded to monkey around the stage, and then slowly did like a striptease performance as a monkey, and like slowly getting pieces off, and then eventually there was me practically naked with a rack of bananas strapped to my crotch, and and from there, like, you know, I was pulling bananas off, throwing them at the crowd, eating them, and then getting people to eat off me, and you know, it just got really, really wild, and ever since then, I was known as the Monkey Man. Yeah.
I wish I'd seen that. Could have been some good inspiration. At Fringe, I get to perform a little bit, and with Owen and the Disney and Drag crew, I invented a character called Tarzan, who's Tarzan wearing drag makeup, and I got to do the ape act as well, and it's really fun. It's really fun. It's really athletic. I was like absolutely knackered every time I did that skit, because I was just running around like a angry chimp who's beating his chest and stomping on the ground. Had I had bananas or the foresight to use bananas as well, I would have loved to have thrown bananas at the audience. That would have been freaking great. But it didn't strike my mind. It was still a really good act, but bananas probably would have turned it up a little bit, especially if I just threw the mushy bits. That would probably really piss a few people off. Man, the Grundy Walkoff comes up so much. One of the first times that you made a ridiculously strong impression on me was in a Grundy Walkoff, but it wasn't that one. It was the one a following year where you were wearing some, let's say, white robes. And do you want to tell that story? Because that story, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this place is it's just too much. Like my little brain is exploding.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was quite a controversial one. That show.
So controversial.
Yeah. So so if I was to paint the picture, like, you know, Grundy Walkoff is somewhere everyone's like really wild and like free and just, you know, yelling, like, you know, there's a lot of energy of laughter and joy and all of that and cheering, and then when it came my turn to go up on stage, what the audience saw was a full figured KKK suit.
Which, like, in Blaze, in a place where you're supposed to be like all lovey-dovey and like, you know, everyone's happy and gorgeous and inclusive, for a KKK suit to be seen as just like, whoa. Yep. Like, well, I mean, for KKK suit to be seen anywhere, that's kind of the response. But in there, I just remember seeing it and being like, Ooh, this is a bit much. And then
Exactly. So yeah, you could just see the change in that energy where the silence just washes over the crowd, and then everyone just like staring, like I don't know what to say or don't know what to do. Should I laugh? Should I cheer? Or it was that silence. And then I kind of just taunted the crowd for a little bit in the suit, and then the first thing to come off was my top robes. So tore that off, and then finally people had a bit of a glimpse of what was under the robes, and then you see the brown skin.
Yeah.
And then there was a little bit of that juxtaposition, the confusion, and then people go like, oh, huh, and then start chuckling, and then along with that I do a little bit of theatrics, like, oh what the fuck's, why am I brown? And then from there people start laughing and then taking it as a joke. And then when the crowd gets to a certain point, then I pull the hood off. And underneath the hood, I was white-faced, and at that point, the crowd just lost their shit because they were just like, "Oh wow, look at this!" And then just the reverse blackface, like thing.
Yeah.
So the transitions from that fear or the KKK, and then suddenly like this bit ridiculous, like it was like a brown man underneath that robe, and then suddenly he's got the white face, so he just transitioned back into being the white sort of supremacist sort of thing. And then I sort of did a little bit of theatrics like that with my face.
And this was, for me, still all just leading up to the climax, because I was still just like the whole time the tension was just building one layer after the other, because the climax for me is still to come.
Yep, exactly. So it's just this one layer building up. Each layer comes off as well. So then the next layer to come off was the bottom half of my robes, and
which was like a big dress, like a big white dress.
Big white dress, and then hanging there from my junk was a wooden cross.
Yep.
And then that's when like the crowd's like, okay, yeah, what's he gonna do next? And then like I start rummaging through the bag. I eventually pull out a lighter and then just use a lighter to taunt the crowd, and then the crowd starts cheering and chanting, and then I pick up the wooden cross that's hanging from my junk and then set it on fire, and then the thing just engulfs in flame. So I'm basically swinging this flaming cross between my legs.
I was losing my mind at this moment in time. Like, brought up Christian, come from Singapore, so multiculturalism is totally like cool with me in a different way to the multiculturalism we have in Australia. I'm cool with both of them, but like so that part wasn't as triggering for me. But the white Ku Klux Klan robes, and then the flaming cross hanging between your junk that you were swinging around, and I was just and you had white face on it, and I was like, my reality was just breaking on so many levels at that moment in time. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. So yeah, there was me swinging that flaming cross up and down the catwalk. And after that, eventually the cross runs out of fuel and the flame dies down, and I get into my knees, pick up the towel, and then start wiping the white face paint off my face. And that's kind of that completing that transition that I kind of designed for that journey. So, going from initially for the KKK white supremacist, then suddenly this brown man comical, and then from there, the white face, a ridiculous comedy. From there, the shock horror of the shot of the stun off the flaming cross.
Had you told anyone about these ideas beforehand?
No, it was a complete surprise. There was only one person in the whole community that knew about my performance before that, and incidentally, that was Hannah Priest, who you interviewed earlier. And I sought her advice because I wasn't a fire performer.
You got her fire skill. Okay, good. She'd love that.
Yeah, so I was like, I got this idea. This is what I'm going to do. How do I do this without burning my balls off? Basically.
Sorry, I cut you off. I was just so perplexed as to whether anyone knew what was about to happen, and it's so cool to know that. Practically speaking, no one except for the fire safety did. So you're about to complete the story. So you've just come to this point in the story where you're swinging around the flaming cross, and then the conclusion is wiping off the white face.
And then from there, like I throw the towel into there, and on the towel written in the paint, like the face paint color was everybody is beautiful. And that was sort of like, I've completed a transformation to being fully me, like naked, without the face paint, and threw that in the air.
Mate, I've got all my hairs on my arms are standing at this moment in time. It was art. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I guess there was a lot of thinking of, that desire to up the ante each year. Like it was like, I have a sort of a passion for creating art that's not just, ridiculous, but also like, has a story and meaning behind it as well. And like I wanted, and I love, walking the line or, pushing the edges as well on what sort of kind of forms of expression.
Do you recall when the first blip of an idea came through that you were like, maybe I should do something with the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, I sort of, this is a couple of years back now, but like I was kind of thinking like, all right, so I was leading up to Blaze, and then I was like, yep, of course I'll be doing the Grundy Walkoff again, because that's something kind of like one of my annual occurrences. And I was like, all right, how do I do something that is just so, like I knew you had an intention that I wanted to do something that pushes boundaries. And like what is the most way that like, a blazer would see and be like, holy fuck, like did I just see that kind of thing? And then somehow the KKK popped into my mind. And then I was like...
So the intention was to play with pushing boundaries.
Yes.
Do you know, is it like, are you wanting to push your boundaries, or are you wanting to push the boundaries of others, or...
A bit of both.
Both?
Because like I wanted something that... I myself would be afraid, and I think actually, now that I remember, that's sort of what initially got me into that. Like I was kind of, what would I be really afraid of, and what would I be afraid to be wearing or doing in front of a crowd, and then that came to mind, and then I was like, okay, all right, that's like pretty out there, and then from there, like, how do I add meaning to it? And then from like, that initial point of, all right, the KKK, how do I create a story or a journey?
So you're not just doing something stupid for like no point. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then from there, like over the next few weeks, I was kind of just mulling over it and like, oh, yep, I can do this and then this and then.
Were you practicing?
No, actually, I didn't really practice a routine. Like I had like created the idea and the routine in my head, and like, making the costumes. And
did you make the costume?
Made the costume, and then like made the cross, and talked to Hannah, and like, she said how much fuel I need to burn it for this long amount of time, and the advice as well. And, I remember one of the things she said was just, whatever you do, just keep on swinging it, boy. Keep on swinging it.
You were swinging it. You were definitely swinging it. I remember that.
Because when you stop, that's when the pain happens.
Yeah, because you've then got a flaming cross dangling between your legs with the heat going straight up.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so that was sort of like me sort of creating that process. But one of the things that I quite like in like, again, there's just my choice, I guess, around performances is that like whilst I'd like to have a rough idea or rough routine of what's going to happen, I prefer to improvise the bits in between.
Yeah.
Because I find, again, personally, that when you do that, then there's a bit more of a realness element to it, and like an authenticity to it. Because if every step and every movement is rehearsed, the audience can also detect that. They can sense that, oh, this is a rehearsed routine. Whereas when the human like sort of visual system is very good at picking up like cues and sort of styles of like body language and things like that, and when they see someone just improvising or creating a routine as they flow, there is a lot more. Again, I've found in the past there is more of that connection between the audience and the performer.
Yep.
And that's one of the things, like whenever I do a performance, like it is always, there's some improv element in.
Yeah, you've got a skeleton, but then there's a lot of loosey-goosey on the way.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I will just give a shout out to one of my favorite performers in the last year. His name's Ruben Kay. He does a lot of time on the fringe scene. And because I was a fringe artist, I got to watch the show a lot. And so I went to see the show a lot. And he's the opposite of that approach. He probably has done the loosey-goosey approach with just a few areas that are structured. But he performs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And now he's done it so many times that he's like, man, every time I do exactly this bit, it crushes. And every time I do exactly this bit, it crushes. And he can just put them out there. So then I go to watch his show, and the first time you see the show, it feels like the whole thing is just him flying by the seat of his pants, right?
Wow.
And it just feels like he's such a big character that can just make fun of everyone and can have a joke about everything, and he's kind of frightening. Well, I think they're kind of frightening. It's all rehearsed, and then you watch the show a second time, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's the same thing. I feel like I just turned on the television program again, and it's just this, and it's still great. Like that's the other amazing part. You watch the same thing again, and you're like, whoa, it was amazing again. Even though I was actually waiting for the line in anticipation. I was so excited. Yeah, really high level performer. So
that sounds like a really great talent there. Yeah.
Polished and practiced in a way that very few people have the experience to polish so much.
Indeed,
You've already alluded to it in your two Grundy Walkoff bits. You seem to have a thing for wanting to take your clothes off.
That's one of the I guess well-known things about me as well. It has been quite a journey in my life as well. Like, you know, it's funny you say that. I was actually talking about this, like, you know, yesterday actually, when I did a photo shoot with Holly Ogden, who's like this artist, the Sunflower.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so she's doing an arts project in the community at the moment where she's inviting people to a studio to take some photos, like, you know, both clothes, underwear and nude shots of people to promote body positivity and body acceptance. That's one of those, and the projects. And I saw it pop up on the Blaze community, and I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I'm keen because that's one of my passions as well that align with me pretty well. So I was like, yep, I put my hand up. And I was there, and, you know, when we were chatting as, you know, she was painting the sunflower, and I was kind of like, you know, telling a little bit about my story as well, because back in, you know, my high school years, like I was a kid that was very shy and reserved, and like, you know, I wouldn't even take my shirt off at a beach because, like, I had a lot of embarrassment around, oh yeah, I don't meet the perfect body type or any of that kind of stuff.
And was it body shape, tone of skin color? Was it muscular shape? What?
Mostly body shape. Like, you know, I was sort of a bigger kid growing up, and like, you know, I was sort of like there was a lot of shame around that, and you know, there was a shame around, you know, as any man as well, like, you know, with the masculinity, like, you know, you want to have a big penis and, you know, big muscles, big everything basically, and like less fat, and like I didn't meet any of those boxes, so I was kind of like, okay, yeah, like I really felt a lot of embarrassment around my body, and the only way I overcame that in my later teen and early 20s was pushing the boundary again, like just like what we were talking about earlier about pushing my own boundary of, like, you know, what scares me, what do I find I could get some growth out of, and you know, I played around with, you know, different things, like, you know, nude beaches, or going streaking, like, you know, for funsies, or as a part of a dare or something, that, you know, stuff that, you know, at the start your heart's beating hard, and like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing it, but then you kind of push through that wall and do it. And something I've always learned, you know, whether it be with body image or freedom of expression, dancing, those kinds of things, is that whenever you push through a wall, you just feel like you break free and you're flying afterwards. So it's this sense of freedom. And I really got into that experiencing that sense of liberation, that freedom that comes from overcoming, like, something that's normally embarrassing or there's a lot of resistance around. And eventually over the years, like, you know, I kind of built up that, then, like, you know, participated in this big group Skinny Dip with the Liberators, like a few, you know, about 6 years ago or something. And then from there, like, you know, went to Blazing Swan, and, you know, got my kid off there. And, like, you know, there was all these things that sort of, like, you know, again, you know, things like performances where, you know, you're in front of a crowd as well. And that was also very challenging from the early years. And then pushing past that, and again, you feel a lot better about yourself and a lot more comfortable and confident in your own skin. And it kind of culminated at this stunt I did at Rainbow Gathering, where like I walked around the festival naked when not really anyone else was with a GoPro strapped to my head, and just seeing the reactions of people, and just as a little bit of an experiment as well as that.
Sorry, Rainbow Serpent or Rainbow Gathering?
Serpent.
Okay,
yeah.
so yep.
Over in Melbourne, it was just quite fascinating. And like, you know, after that, I felt a lot more comfort and safety in my own skin. And that's something that I really like, seeing that journey unlock in others as well. And that's why I love being involved in events that promote that body positivity or body image for people, because I think it is a feeling that everyone deserves to feel about themselves. Because, you know, there's so many sort of restrictions and weights that are let go when you are safe in your own body.
Doing research for this, and I mean, like I know you as well, but I got to chat with a lot of people who know you a lot better than I do, and everyone really did lean into this idea of how much you love to be able to share that liberation, that feeling of freedom, and that, you know, you've obviously pushed very hard to experience the gold on the other side yourself, and now you do a lot to give that experience to a lot of people. I'm going to guess it brings you some joy to see that happen. And you've got a variety of projects that you've completed, that are yet to come, that are regular projects, most of them to do with actually the Liberators, not so much the Blaze community. Do you want to share a little bit about some of the big projects that you've worked on there that are like most precious to you?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Very true. And like, you know, just as I have its journey around liberation and, you know, unlocking you know, different layers of yourself and comfort and safety and expression and body. When I see that unfold in others, it's just such a beautiful feeling. It almost takes me back to me first, like trying out different things to experience new things and push past boundaries. And, you know, that's something that, like, you know, I find I both relive and just feel that empathy, that what's called that you know, that really beautiful feeling that you feel of people feeling that joy and freedom, and that's what motivates me a lot in creating, helping create events like that. And you know, with the Liberators, we've done so many different things, particularly around dance expression and.
Yeah, you guys work really
like
hard.
That. Yeah, we do like churning out these events, like
constantly trying new crazy events. Sorry, yeah,
exactly, and you know, this really beautiful occurrence. You know, I think it'll be about 7 years ago now, where it was in the very early days of the Liberators, and you know, Peter Sharp, the founder of it, the movement, was running one of the street events, and the pleasure of meeting him then, and we got along really well. Like, you know, had this initial conversation, and it was very clear that, you know, a lot of our values were aligned so strongly. And since then, I just dived straight into that, and like, you know, it was helping create events with them, and then to the point where a few years later it was me and Pete doing a lot of the organizing work behind a lot of these events, and creating global events. And
I just probably should have asked this as soon as I said the Liberators. What are the Liberators?
Oh, yeah. So the Liberators, so we're a group, like, I guess you can call us like a social movement. We create a lot of community events that promotes liberation, and you know, it's a common theme of what we were talking about today as well, about that feeling of you know, moving past social expectations of how we should behave, like how our body should be, how our expression should be, how we talk, how we sing, how we dance, and how we dress, and like, you know, things that there's certain sort of expectations in society that kind of contain us, and it's about creating spaces where people feel safe to let go of those containers and restrictions, and really truly be themselves, and not have anything stopping them from being themselves. And there's a lot of events that we create that help foster that, and a lot of our
where are you learning these events from? Like how did you, where do these ideas come from? Are these guys just all your guys' ideas, or?
Yeah, some of them are things that we've sort of seen from social experiments, like, you know, like for example, there was like, you know, the eye gazing experiment was based around this eye gazing art piece of I forget her name.
So the New York
the
exhibition,
New York exhibition, and like, you know, there's ideas that come from there, and then there's other things. A lot of them Pete had came up with in his earlier years of you know, building up to the Liberators. He'd done a lot of social experiments in, you know, when he was in Barcelona, and he had these crazy ideas that like, you know, like, all right, we could try this out in like, you know, go out and dance through the streets in onesies, or you know, have a ward fight, or like, you know, go to like a big public space and then hold an eye gazing experiment with members of the public, or get on a train and whip out a guitar and start singing and get the whole crowd singing with you, and like, you know, stuff like that really just, I guess, fucks the norm.
Well, yeah, it looks like it's like an alternate reality, just like makes its way into another alternate reality. It's like these two different realities converge. One more surprised than the other.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are ways of, like, you know, encouraging people to sort of feel safe in that. Like, you know, like, for example, in a public dance party, you could have other people, like some members of your crew, dressed up as normal and
plants.
Going about their
got some plants,
got some plants, going about their daily life. And then when other crowds, like members of the public, see that happen, where someone that they perceive to be one of them come up and dance, then it gives them that permission that, oh, I could do it too.
Yeah, I did an event with you guys years and years ago. That was the Silent Disco Walking Tour. What I don't know how to describe it better than when we're all wearing the headsets, right? Yeah. And we're all wearing the headsets. And we're all listening to a pre-recorded, I think, maybe it was live. Yeah, we're listening to a pre-recorded mix, and we were following you guys as we did a tour through the city. It was a fairly grey day. It was drab. It was drizzling. It was a bit cold. It wasn't very nice to be out. But somehow, like, I guess everybody who came to participate at the event, we were just like, well, at least for me, I was like, well, I'm here now, so I might as well make the most of it, because it's not so nice outside, but I'll give it a red hot go. And fuck, it was the most one of the most ecstatic experiences of my life. And we were just maniacs, just dancing through the city, and people were watching, and it was really wonderful. And I went to work, and at the time I was working in an engineering building full of engineering men, a very older demographic of engineering men as well. And there was someone there who saw it. He asked me, like, oh, what I got up to on the weekend. And I was like, oh, I did this crazy dance party thing. And he's like, oh, I saw that. and he was like, oh, is that what it was? And like, he couldn't really work it out even with me explaining it to him. But he was like, oh, I thought that you guys were all paid by the city of Perth to just put on like entertainment for the city. And it was strange, and it wasn't the entertainment that I'm used to, but that's what I thought it was. And the ability to, like, it was just fascinating to see, like, what people, the reasons that people make up in their minds for something that's going on around them, because you kind of like have to attach a reason to it. Or at least that's how my brain works anyway. You got to tell a story that you're like, oh, I know what the story is now. It's all safe. It makes sense, right? Until you get to that point, it's a bit too scary to even, like, it's too scary to even meet unless you have a story that you can observe it through. At least that's in my experience. Too much narrative.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, you know, it is so against the norm that a lot of people won't understand. Like, oh, how is this even possible? How can I actually do things? But, like, you know, it is possible. Like, so many humans have that ability. It's just that they have a lot of those restrictions that they have on them, or expectations.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's not that society has rules that, oh, you can't dance on the streets. It's just more people put those rules upon themselves based on, you know, what they expect to be the norm.
As someone who likes to create as well, I also feel like it's not possible, or they won't allow you, or you can't do that thing, just comes up like so much. Just like every time you have an idea, you're like, no, you can't do that. It's just like, well, why not? Because this person will be angry, or this thing, or this thing. And some of those are like true, or more true than others. How have you learned to navigate, like, which things you're like, oh, well, actually you're right, we do need to consider this thing, but no, this is the area where we can push. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it does require a bit of like, analysis of the situation as well. Like, you kind of usually we'll have a meeting before running like an event, and then from there we kind of talk about like, what is the best way of doing about it? Like, we want to go about it in a way where we don't absolutely shock everyone so that people just you become a performance. And like the idea of a lot of these events is not just being a performance, it's about getting the crowd involved, like interacting with people and making the crowd feel safe rather than just going in there shock horror and like, just making sure you push that boundary in a way where you can get others included or incrementally kind of build something up and get people sort of involved in what it is you're doing and get them freed as well. So yes, it does take a bit of planning and also, a bit of spontaneity as well. Like, it brings back to recently where we did this teddy bear hug thing in the city where, we had people dressed up as teddy bears, like at the end of like this tunnel of, and as we sort of have commuters coming out of the train station and then walking down the path, like they'll have this option of going down through a tunnel of people, and everyone's like cheering them on, and at the end there's a bear that gives them a big bear hug. Like and like, how do you set that up so that people don't just get freaked out and walk the other way, and like, and also like, we were kind of doing setting things up as we go. Like we had this tunnel set up and we had like a gap where people, if they really don't feel like going through it, they have a way of avoiding it. And then we had certain situations depending on what location we had it down the path, where the bend was. Like, we had overwhelming amounts of people just avoiding it versus people coming in, and then, fine tuning it to.
It sounds like you've got like a Mission Impossible 3 like control center where you guys are like got maps of places
move it further up
walkie talkies.
And just see what can be adjusted so that people feel more encouraged to go through that and experience it. It's fun. It's like the social like engineering, I suppose. It's
like I guess the commercial thing that comes closest to it is like back in the day the candid camera or candid camera was probably the one where it was just like where something odd was going on, and this is also like a break in reality, but wanting to break that person's reality so they have a liberating, joyful experience, not a humiliating we gotcha experience. It's just like no, like be the hero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And you guys are sharing a lot of this content on YouTube, and I understand that the YouTube channel has got a little bit of traction recently. Like I hear that it's gone from 120,000 subscribers to 160 in 1 month. So like a huge growth in the last month.
Yeah.
That's roughly correct?
Yes.
And so the YouTube channel is...
It's doing very well. Like
what's it called?
So the Liberators.
The Liberators.
Yeah. And it's like
do you have a favorite video?
Yeah, I think some of the earlier train dance videos were really, really cool. Like I think one of my, there's two that come to mind. Like, one of them was one of the earlier, not the first train dance we did, but we did a dance on a train, but also collaborated with Junkadelic, which is a local jazz band, brass band. And we set it up so that, we get on the train, have a speaker there, and like slowly people start dancing, and then getting encouraged in the public to also start dancing on the train. And then suddenly we go to the next station, the doors open, and a full-blown brass band just comes on board, and just with the big drums and the big sort of
the tubas or whatever,
tubas, and then they start playing, and then the ridiculousness and like the energy of it just skyrockets, goes up a notch, and then everyone's like, wow, look at this, and then again, like, getting more people involved and dancing, and like it was this massive
party. Do you catch the train to work?
I don't anymore.
You used to?
I used to.
All right. So you've got this one life where you're like, breaking reality, and you're bringing these like lovely, high energy, beautiful social experiments into the world, and you get to play on that side where you're the instigator of the crazy experiment. When you're catching the train in your other when you're not surrounded by a super high energy, are you also on your phone? Just, scrolling.
I just do the everyday thing. Just scrolling. Scrolling my way through life.
So it's just
I guess the best of us.
Because it's really hard. It's really hard. I mean, that's the space of a train. When I was in, I believe in Sydney, they've got like quiet carriages as well, where like you're kind of, I think it's the front or the last carriage in the train where you're like, you're not allowed to talk in there. It's
Oh,
just like,
wow.
Just going there. It's like, no conversation. This is the quiet carriage for people who just want total quiet. So like it is a space that, I don't know, conduces people going into introversion or reading a book or reading a newspaper or scrolling on the media. Not a space to me to connect, typically. So it's a good to break it down every now and then.
Indeed, it's quite fascinating. Like, just marrying like what it is in day to day, like, everyday life, and versus the things that I guess we get up to in like in events in community like that, and like it really can be worlds apart. And like I guess what I like to think Liberators are is about bridging those two worlds to try and sort of encourage some movement of like the everyday life to become kind of a space where you'd have it blaze, for example.
How are you doing this personally? Because you've got this one life that's like very colorful, very high energy, very out there and nuts, and then you're also an engineer, working in an engineering space, and so you're also actually living on both sides of the bridge. How is that? And like, what are those two going to actually be bridged in your life as well, or are you like, are you living in polarities, or like?
It is a bit like that. I mean, there is still some transfer of myself in that professional kind of engineer world, and myself in terms of these events and crazy liberation world, where like at work, there's still a lot of the stuff, the me that comes with human connection and getting to know people, and like that helps also in the professional world in terms of, because a lot of it is interacting with people, understanding people. And I find I bring some of that and some of that energy into the workplace, and at the same time into the events and free community world. Like I bring a lot of that knowledge of project management and logistics and stuff like that comes and helps me.
You're stealing skills from both sides.
Yeah, stealing skills from both sides.
You're a double agent.
Yes. And I find that helps a lot, and like especially like the skills that I have in the engineering side is still useful for making events run. Essential for running events, and especially big events like Blaze to make sure they run efficiently, legitimately, and without burning people out, and without causing trouble that that sort of sets up roadblocks basically.
I was talking to Paul Castle, treasurer. Treasurer. Thanks for the hookup to chat with Paul, and he was saying that in your guys' roles in leading or being in the committee of Blazing Swan, and in your role as chairperson, that you actually quite stay out of the creative side and leave all the creativity to the artists and the camp leads, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes,
and you guys attempt to just do like the governance, the legalities, the administration, the those bits, so that there's, I guess, space for everyone else to then like work with that foundation and go and build crazy shit all over it.
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Yeah. And it was an interesting journey in itself as well. Like, when I first started in Blaze, I was first a participant the first year I went, and I just, got up, did crazy shit, and just, helped create. And like the next year I helped create stuff with theme camps and started volunteering as a greeter because, you know, human connection and sort of welcoming energy is one of my passions as well. So, you know, part of what we do as greeters is we go up to we're at the portal up the front of the event, and we teach people about the 11 principles and kind of do this transition ceremony of, you know, from the outside world to the world of Blazing Swan or the burner world, and sort of almost hand-holding them through that transition of letting go of those inhibitions. And again, you know, stuff that to do with the Liberators help with that as well. And then bridge, it's like a tunnel between the two worlds, and like holding them transitioning through that. And like, you know, there's a lot of interaction and sort of ground level stuff that I did. And then from there I became a team lead and got to be involved in, again, creating things, and got more involved in, you know, either theme camps, like whether it be Shivas or Liberators or, you know, those sorts of things. And, you know, getting and other camps, like, you know, other performances and things that are do with Papazans, Coisis, and like, you know, helping out with, you know, things like unicorn parades and, like, you know, a lot of these really crazy expression stuff. And as the years went by, I got less and less involved in that stuff and more involved in more of the like the logistics and the governance and those kinds of things, because, you know, the year after I was screwed as lead, a position opened up in committee, and yeah, they were looking for someone, and I put my hand up, and then I got invited onto the committee after that, and from there there was like a few years of transition where I was secretary, and then from there like there was a lot of, you know, drama and things, and like a lot of stuff that went on in the community at that time that kind of just moved it in a direction where like we lost a lot of people in the team, unfortunately, and from there they needed to a reshuffle, and then I ended up being chair at the time, and then started going on this, again, another recruitment drive to try and rebuild the organization. And this was after the, you know, around about when the cancellation in 2020 happened as well. So there was a lot of, it was a very difficult year for Blaze. Like we just lost an event, lost a lot of like, you know, financial standing and, you know, stuff like that. And like people were burnt out, people were taxed, people were like, you know, as naturally humans do, there's always drama as well when people are under pressure. And also when Blaze was transitioning as well, like into a more sort of professional organization in the back end anyway, which is needed to, I guess, run things more efficiently when you become a big event, and there's a lot of eyes on you in community, in the media and stuff like that are watching everything that happens. And from there was a lot of changes, and changes were hard. And from there, that's when like I ended up being chair, and from there, like, you know, Blaze became what it is today, where, you know, we have, you know, 30 plus leads, like a really well functioning committee, very well functioning organization, and a lot of those things that we do isn't the sort of things that I would do when I first started in my Blazing Swan community. Like, you know, there's a lot less of that fun stuff or that creative stuff. Like it still is rewarding in its own right. Like it's certainly less like, you know, going out, going crazy and like being free and expressive and being creative, and a lot more desk work, like kind of similar to what my day job would be like, and a lot of paperwork, a lot of mediations, negotiations, and, you know, stuff like that. But it's all stuff that needs to happen for that bigger thing, the big organization, the event to work. And yeah, it was a learning process as well, because, you know, I make mistakes, you know, everyone around makes mistakes, and, you know, trying to work through them and, like, you know, do some, like, you know, again, transitioning from those other like the other life that I had in the community, like, you know, the guy who'd be the crazy monkey up on stage to the guy who is basically running and negotiating and doing a lot of paperwork and making sure these legal boxes are checked and stuff like that. And it was a difficult transition, but it was a transition that happened, but is still rewarding in that, from the work that I do and from what the work that the rest of the community does, we are allowed to run and we're allowed to create such beautiful, life-changing experiences for the community.
Yeah. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes in everything. If you want to change anything in the built world, it's extremely difficult. And as soon as you attempt to start to make a change somewhere, you realize how hard it actually is. I think Thomas Kuhn said, if you truly want to understand something, just try and change it.
Yeah.
What's so there's a lot of people who want to go and create a beautiful event or put up a public sculpture, or they want to do some wonderful work of art. They want to run a show. They want to go on a tour or whatever. And that's the fun, artistic, expressive side. That's just like, I've got this wicked idea. And a lot of them don't even get off the ground. And they don't get off the ground because there is no ground. There's no foundation. There isn't actually that thing underneath it all. If there was one skill that you think is like, outside of the art space, that if people could develop a little bit more, it'd actually open up their doors to then actually be able to have something to put their creativity on and play off that. What do you reckon would be the one that you've observed that is most valuable to someone who wants to be able to do something like build the things that you've built?
Yeah. I'd say a lot of it is to do with, it's, I guess a few things like, when it comes to managing a project, like a lot, or I guess the most challenging things I found is the people element of it. And, being able to really understand what different people in that project's desires are, and what it is that they want to contribute or add to the space, and like trying to find that middle ground or that way of making sure that everyone involved has achieves at least somewhat of what what they do want to contribute, whilst at the same time not ending up in a scenario where you have all these people with different sort of skills and different experiences trying to go against each other, because in the end of the day, everyone wants that project to succeed, because that's why they're there, like especially in a volunteer organization like Blaze, where people really want to see it shine. They really want to see it being a success. It's just that in order for us to create something that is so big and vast and weird and wonderful, the people involved are very unique and different, because you can't have the same people behind the scenes to create something like that. You need people with differing skills and differing passions, and just remembering that we all want that one thing, like we want that end goal of creating what we are creating, it is quite a skill to sort of juggle all of that, like aligning people in that objective, maintaining that passion.
So
leading.
So let me try and say it back. So this is the big takeaway. So when you've got a vision or an idea, it's in the process of collaboration to be able to find the areas where energies overlap.
Yes, yeah.
And that people will work collaboratively and cooperatively on some things. And it probably won't be exactly anyone's vision, but it'll be a combination of all of the visions. And each one, I guess, in some ways will be like, well, that's not exactly what I thought we were doing, but it's pretty damn close. And it's freaking wicked to be a part of building that, because that's awesome. Whereas if we didn't get along, we'd have nothing. So looking for that like overlapping collaboration.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's one of the biggest things with projects like that.
Yeah, cool.
And also, there's a lot of, involved in making sure things run smoothly as well. And like, that's one of the things in the, when you get to a certain size, like sometimes the skills of running something smoothly and efficiently and professionally is at odds with a lot of the creative and sort of expansive and like the wacky side, which is important for, you know, events like Blaze or the Liberators. But at the same time as being very, you know, wacky and creative, you have to make sure the event runs logistically and like legally and formally and all those kinds of stuff. Like, you know, you're dealing with the government agencies as well. Whilst, like, you know, at the beginnings of an event or a project like that, I find people, you can get away with doing things alternatively a lot when you're sort of first starting out, and sometimes, in fact, it's important as well to have a little bit more flexibility and, like, you know, doing sort of, you know, like wheeling dealing and, like, you know, just getting things doing things ad hoc, doing things without a plan, because it is important for a lot of the people involved to have that creative energy pouring into to get this thing off the ground, like to motivate, to actually keep the, like, you know, get the, overcome that initial inertia to create something amazing. But then as the inertia starts and then you start moving ahead and growing bigger and growing legs and becoming more complicated, that's when you generally have to have some sort of official sort of governance sort of type thing to actually make sure everything runs smoothly, everything runs legitimately. You have a plan, you have schedules, you have project management, stuff like that. Because otherwise, once it gets to a certain complexity and size, it'll just fall apart and it won't continue. So at different stages, like, you know, of like a longevity of an organization, each style of doing things has its place. So it's not that, you know, it has to always be about, you know, ticking boxes and writing schedules from the very start. You know, from a like a timeline of an organization, it's always good to go through that initial phase of getting getting the momentum started. With, you know, a creative and amazing bunch of people, and then from there having other sort of kinds of people that can also do the logistics and the sort of the organizing side of things as well to make sure that this big beast that has evolved keeps going without falling apart, because it's just got too complicated and too large to be managed. So yeah, hope I explained that right. Like, it was kind of like, you know, every style has its place basically, and just because of a organization was running a certain way before doesn't mean that it was any less good of an organization then, because back then it really served it well, and like now this style of running things serves it. And, you know, a change can be difficult, but it's a change that kind of needs to happen to keep it going. That's sort of, yeah,
how do you
experience a lot.
How do you get to a place, or maybe do you get to a place where you can switch off and actually enjoy what's been created? So like in the Blaze, that whatever the last one was, 21. Did you get to just put your feet up and go out and have fun, or were you constantly on call? Or
I was on call for most of the Blaze event in 2021, but there was like a few hours on 2 nights where I was like, yep, okay, that's it. I've done all the work. And like, there's a lot of the dramas and all the situations that needed attending were attended to, and they've been resolved. And there was one night in particular, I think it was the Monday night at the end of the event, where I was just the whole night, like, you know, from about 8 p.m. to about midnight, I was like, yep, that's my time to just go out to God Said No, dance it out, and like, yeah, just have a really good time.
So you're pretty on during the festival. You're still pretty on for a lot of it.
I was, yeah. The plan is like for next year, it'll be less on, because now there's a lot more people, thankfully, in the organisation than there were before. So the idea is that, like, once the event starts, I'll maybe do a couple of event management shifts and also maybe be in call for things, but like, there'll be less things that need my attention.
Yep.
Whereas in 2021, there was a lot of things that needed my attention. But yeah, that said, there were a few moments where I really got to drop into the dance and drop into, you know, just talking to people and having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, so learned a little bit about your why tonight,
Yeah.
which is this like desire to like push boundaries and go to the other side of boundaries. What would you like to, if you had infinite resources, what kind of thing would you like to create?
Yeah. I guess like what I consider is probably one of my favorite, co-creations, I suppose, is Blissfest. And like if I had more resources, that's what I would throw at, like, to create more of that, or like, bigger and better of what that became.
Yeah. Tell me, paint me Blissfest.
Yeah, so Blissfest is an event. It's very unique in its style of, like, what the festival is. In that it's kind of born from a lot of what we learnt. Pete and I and Lakey learnt in running the Liberators, like, that spontaneity, the liberation, freedom, like, like the unexpected journey. So it's like basically a festival where we still have, the workshops, you have the music, the DJ sets, the live bands, and but at the same time you also have this additional dimension of the surprise, where every so often during the weekend there'll be this spontaneous thing that no one expects to happen, and that changes,
like a blackout.
Yep, like a blackout. Yeah, like that just changes the like the dynamic of that event, and just transitions that event from one phase to the next phase.
Yeah, so I've heard about this blackout. So, but did it happen at nighttime?
Yeah, so like for example,
it's nighttime and there's people raving at a dance
raving.
floor.
Yeah, like, for example, on on that night, everyone's just raving, having a great time, and then suddenly the whole power just goes off.
Who was on decks?
Pete was on the decks.
Pete was on the decks.
Yep, Pete was on the decks. So
power
his set
shuts
just
off.
cut in half, and then everyone's like, "Oh wow, what the fuck's going on?" And then like we kind of just played along with it. Like, we even had one of the electricians in the crowd just volunteer. I'm happy to come have a look at it, and we just play along with that. And then
Are you on megaphones? You're just yelling? Is that
just
like,
yelling, yelling, and like just running around looking like, something's gone wrong. And then we had this like a
how many people are at Blissfest?
it was about 300 that year, and
300.
about 400 the year after.
Yep.
And we saw then this UFO then flies overhead, and then it's just this.
What do you mean a UFO flies
So
overhead?
it was basically like we'd set up a drone to look like a UFO gliding, and like, it just goes over, and then just goes off to the other side of the lake, and then it crashes. And there's a big noise from the other side and a flash, and then we're like, all right, what's happening there? And then we kind of, with voices, get the crowd together and like, oh, let's go check this out. So now it becomes like the childlike adventure of like, oh yeah, we're having this fun sort of play along thing, and everyone's kind of like, oh wow, this is cool, like, and then they're all kind of gather in this bunch, and we start walking around the lake to the field on the other side. And as we go over the mound, like there's 300 people all walking over the mound, and the clearing just opens up, and then there's this great big UFO wedged into the ground.
Nah, bullshit. No such thing as UFOs, mate.
and then we all sort of gather around it, and there's all these lighting effects like lasers and sort of strobes and like, wavy sort of inner sort of bit underneath. Like that little bauble at the bottom, and then as everyone kind of arrives and just kind of like waiting for something to happen, and then this sort of very eerie sort of music starts to build up, and then it just culminates to a point where that front ball bit bursts open, and then these aliens, like 3 aliens, come out. One of them, like this Dex that comes out, and he just drops the beats, and then this really kind of squelchy set comes on, and then everyone gets up and then starts dancing. So it's basically like a bonus stage that wasn't there before at the start of the event, but then suddenly was just appeared to spawn into existence. And
yeah, cool.
And then there was some performing aliens as well, doing funky dance moves and going through the crowd. And yeah, like it was just one of those things that really bewilders people.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, for example, like in the same event on that weekend, then like the next morning or the next afternoon, we had like an hour of silence where everyone was just silent the whole time, but still playing and interacting after lunch. And then the end of that silent period was you know, this Neptune, the god of the seas, kind of comes up out of the water, and then just with the trident and some mermaids saying that I'm going to raise Atlantis from the seas, and then behind him, like, you know, and he starts dropping the beats. So this is Star Malama, like on the decks, and dropping some beats and doing rapping, and basically rapping out how he's this big sea god, like about to raise Atlantis. And then you see in the background, like this inflatable city starts to slowly inflate and rise from the water and then assemble itself. And like we had like divers underneath, so getting everything like assembled together. And then suddenly within about 15 minutes, there was a water park right in the middle of the lake, like complete with a slide, a pyramid, a big dance platform, a trampoline, and some
You're just blowing minds.
yeah, just stuff like
minds.
that, like, you know, stuff that you don't expect to happen at a festival just happens, and then you kind of then just go with it and go into the next phase.
So you're wanting to create something like that, but what, like bigger or crazier?
Yeah, bigger and crazier. Yeah.
Do you already have some ideas?
It's the ideas that we talk about and think about, but they're meant to be surprised.
Yeah, you can't talk too much about the ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, until the next Blissfest happens, and then, you know, it gets unveiled. Like, you know, it's one of those. They're done in utmost secrecy. A lot of these ideas and planning for it, and that's quite another element as well with Blissfest, where we then have these teams isolated working on a project but they can't then tell anyone else what, like the other members of the
because you're keeping it a secret from each other.
Yeah, from each other.
This is totally an Area 51 operation.
Yeah, so that way, like, not all the volunteers even know what's gonna happen. So only like a select few volunteers who worked on a particular project know what's going to happen for that surprise. And
do you know who Bob Lazar is?
No, not actually.
He's an Area 51 ex-employee conspiracist who talks about the existence of spaceships. So, Pasan, do spaceships exist? Do UFOs exist?
Yep, they do exist at Blissfest.
Yeah. Yeah, are you going to get some real ones there? Or you've already got some real ones there. So where is that spaceship now? Have you got it in your own Area 51 compound somewhere?
We got a compound somewhere. So
learning tech from it.
Yep. Yeah, learning enough tech for our next adventures.
Yeah, cool. So you're wanting to do more of that and make it in some way, I don't know what the right word is, bigger, better, wilder, crazier, more surprising.
Exactly. And like, you know, with more resources, you can create something that's sort of just truly spectacular. And the stuff that blows minds does take a lot of resources to do.
So to get the additional resources, who would be the best if you could have anyone working for you, anyone in the world working for you, or anyone helping you do a specific task? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I suppose I've always been pretty happy with the people we have, like in our teams, because, like, you know, the creativity and the chemistry we have, like particularly in Blissfest like this. Pete, myself, and Lakey, who kind of are behind the scenes main coordinators of that event. And, like, you know, we created it together, like, and in fact, like, you know, the first time we created an event like that was my birthday, my 30th party, actually. Pasanable. Like, that was our first shot at creating a festival, and like, that's when I had this idea of creating surprise events to drive the event, and like, you know, came up with a few surprise events, and then from there the model worked so well, and then we were like, oh, we should turn it into an actual festival, and it was kind of birthed by us. And it's just like, I guess, you know, there's always, you know, skills like people like in pyrotechnics, or people like in, you know, sort of special effects, and, you know, those kinds of people that are very good at what they do to be involved as well, to make some ideas a reality. But at the same time, there's so many people in our community that has amazing skills, like even locally in Perth, and you know, the last couple of years of isolation from the rest of the world has really showed that we've
got everything we need right here.
Yeah, we've got everything we need right here. We've got so much talent. And like, if we need musicians, artists, they're there. Like, if we need people to create amazing things, they're there. Like, with Blaze this year as well, like, we know there was a time when we were just struggling for someone to build the effigy. Then I was calling around from some of the old sort of Blazers, and Angus popped up, and Angus Priest, and he was like, all right, I'll do this effigy for you. And he had these amazing amounts of skills, like wizardry with pyro work and fireworks shows, and just coming up with all these crazy creative ideas to make this the most spectacular ignition sequence WA's ever seen. And it's just which hopefully everyone would get to see next year for 2023. But yeah, they're there. Like, a lot of this talent exists in our community, and it's very inspiring to see that around.
Yep. So the resources are forming as you speak. Yeah. They're right there when you go looking for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Any other more close up? So Blissfest, I understand the next one is going to be in 2023, sometime early in the year.
2023.
Any closer events that you're currently working on that you're excited by?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to have quite a cruisier year this year. Like, there's, of course, Blossom as well, which would be in October. So, I run the Lifestyle Village there in Blossom Fest.
Who are the leads at Blossom?
So that's Tim Braybrook, and there's Drew, there's Tommy, and there's Shannon. So they're the main organisers for Blossom Fest. And Tim and I have been friends for many years. We actually at uni together as well, and we work together in the default world main roads as well as.
Oh, he's a main roads person as well.
A main roads person, coincidentally.
You two
weirdos. He runs festivals. He's like an avid blazer. I'm an avid blazer, and it's just we have a lot in common.
Suit and tie guys, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's just amazing how much we share, and we've also shared a journey, and I like to help him out in his event with lifestyle, which is very much stuff that I get exposed to a lot in the line of work I do with the Liberators. And similarly, he helps us with Blissfest as well, when it comes to some of the music and the stage sort of production work and stuff like that, which Blossom tends to be very good at doing. So it's just great having those community collaborations as well. So I'm excited for Blossom this year, and we occasionally do a little bit of Liberator magic as well at the event. Last Blossom Fest, we had this moving marquee experience where we couldn't have an art car at Blossom, but we did the next best, or even the more crazy idea of having a moving stage where the stage itself with full sound setup and lighting effects can be lifted by the crowd and moved around all around the festival. And we had a few little surprises along the way as well, in through Liberator style. And it's just amazing adding a little bit of that energy to
you like the surprise energy.
Yes.
Yeah. Just pop people's minds a little bit that way. Just bring that in.
Exactly. So that was quite an amazing experience, and I'm looking forward to working on that again.
Yeah.
The Lifestyle Village for Blossom 2022.
Yep.
And aside from that,
What month is Blossom going to be in?
So September, usually the longer weekend in September, the Queen's birthday.
And it's happening somewhere outside of Perth?
In Boddington usually.
Boddington, within a couple of hours of Perth's CBD.
Yeah. So it's reasonably close by. So excited about that. Aside from that, there'll be the regular Liberator events as well. We got our monthly Ecstatic dancers. This month has taken a bit of a break because it's been a bit hard getting a venues locked in with COVID and numbers and those kinds of things. Especially with indoor events, but yeah, we are hoping that next month we'll be able to run another dance and do a few more like outdoor crazy wacky parties as well. Like we're thinking of doing like another dark party, like under a sort of a bridge somewhere or in a tunnel somewhere, like out in the bush, and like, you know, stuff like that with a few other funky surprises along the way. So yeah, it's those are in the works as well. But with Blaze not happening this year, there's, I guess, a lot more time and space for like, you know, taking it easy a bit for a change, and like, you know, creating. You know, for example, lead up to Blaze, we have a lot more time now. So ideally, we'll get a bit more work done earlier on, so that things are less of a crunch time closer to the date.
Yeah. What's your taking it easy? What do you actually do when you're taking it easy? find nobody's actually just sitting around, because that's
it's funny. I experienced the opposite end of that, like, you know, the opposite end of what I normally do, which is very busy in the last couple of weeks when I got COVID, and I was basically in isolating for nearly a week, then isolating for another week because I actually got COVID, and then another week on top of that I was working from home. And, you know, it's like there was days and days where I was just sitting at home, there's literally nothing to do, and I watched like TV shows like, you know, Netflix and Disney Plus, and like, you know, and because that's something I never have time to fit into my day-to-day schedule.
Yep.
Because I'm always busy working on a project, running an event, or at work. So it was really interesting being able to catch up when some of these shows and movies and things that I wanted to see.
You can never catch up.
Yeah,
Don't try and catch up. There's too much stuff. Exactly. People watching Netflix is like,
you
what
watch,
now?
You
what
watch one
what
thing,
program?
the next one
all
comes
the
up.
platforms and everything on top of that. It's just it's never ending.
Exactly. And aside from that, like, you know, out of lockdown, like I do like spending time with friends, like, you know, getting to know the friends I have and making new friends and really sort of connecting and having sort of smaller gatherings and dinners and things.
Yeah, dinner parties
And
potluck.
stuff like that, potlucks.
Yep, you make a mean curry.
I do make a mean curry.
You can make a mean curry for, I'm guessing, for 6 people, but I've seen you also make a mean curry for freaking 60 people. So, so scalability works well for you.
That's another little passion of mine, like cooking. Feeding. Yeah,
feeding.
Like I do love.
Yeah, you're Sri Lankan, yeah.
Yeah, Sri Lankan.
Hey, do your family? Do they live in the city?
Yeah. So, well, my parents live in Perth, in Canning Vale.
How do they get around your antics?
They're aware of it, but they're
just
sort
like
of, they kind of shake their
got
heads
siblings?
at it. Yeah, I do have one
so
sister.
they're all like, they're like, he's just a bit weird, but we just want,
it's
he's also an engineer.
Yeah. At least I check that box.
How's engineering going?
Yeah. At least I check that box of, you know, I'm an engineer,
peace.
I have a house, so, you know, get those boxes. But like I don't.
You know, I guess to each their own. He's, you know, he's kind of on the rails. So when he's not on the rails, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's kind of funny there, and I guess a lot of my cousins and relatives back in Sri Lanka don't really know much about what I do.
It's pretty hard to describe as well.
Yeah,
it'd be really like
it's a bit mind blowing.
Yeah, it'd be really weird to describe. When chatting with Paul as well, Paul described how you guys are mates back in uni.
Yes.
So you guys are both studying. He's a mathematician. You're an engineer. And he was telling these stories of like how you'd be you're an intelligent dude, you're a reserved guy, you can do the engineering thing, but then becoming to uni telling these stories of all these like crazy experiences that you had on the weekend where wild parties happened, and it kind of eventually piqued his interest, and you're I guess able to share that with him, and that's still what you want to do with Liberators, is just share this craziness with as many people as possible.
Exactly.
Where did this bug come from in you?
This as in, like, you know, that desire to sort of go out and try things.
Oh no, sorry, I've got the backstory in this one. Sorry, it's just triggered in my mind. I heard from Pete that you went to science camp. And the science camp actually happened to just be the perfect cocoon in some regard for you to just be like, whoa, I discovered something. I didn't discover fucking atoms.
Yeah.
I didn't work out any new area of physics or anything new in chemistry. I discovered something about myself. True science. You just went fucking in guru science, in Indian mystic style.
Yeah.
Tell a story.
Yeah, that's a funny story actually, because like, you know, it's somewhere you don't expect to start a journey like this, where like, you know, in high school I was a lot more a lot less, you know, people minded, but much more sort of academic minded. You know, I loved maths, I loved science, and, you know, I loved physics. That was sort of my passion back then. I still find it a passion as well. Like, you know, I do love understanding the universe and all of that. But back then, like, that was a lot like that in computers. That was sort of my main focus. And I applied to go to this science camp in year 11, year 12 in Canberra. I ended up getting selected as one of the people to fly over there for this, you know, this 1 week program they had for like they selected like 100 or so students from around
to go to science camp.
Yeah, to go to science camp.
So this is just taking me to American Pie and band camp. So there's this kind of like thing going on. Yeah.
So we were staying at like a university style accommodation at the Australian National University, and we went to these, you know, science seminars and like these cool, crazy labs that they have there by day. But then by night, it was a lot more people oriented, and like, you know, everyone's kind of chilling in like that college style accommodation, and, you know, we'd either play sports or dance or disco nights. And
hang on, how old were you again?
I would have been 16 or 15, so 15, there was
16.
no drugs, alcohol, because
but there's teachers watching you.
Not really. Like they kind of it was run by people who were former, like it was called the National Youth Science Forum, and people who were ex-National Youth Science Forum attendees were the ones sort of facilitating the experience.
Oh, ex-attendees.
Yes.
So they're just a few years older.
There's only a couple of years older.
Okay, so they're like university kids, and you guys are high school kids.
So
night times you're all hanging out playing soccer and dancing,
like, you know, dancing, or like, you know, playing all these fun games and activities and stuff like that, and like, and that's where it really opened up my mind. I was like, wow, it's actually amazing, you know, just playing, and like, you know, and really. Like it really opened my eyes that, like, you know, I loved the people side of the world as well as, you know, I guess the books side of the world. And that was the first time I really danced as well. Like I remember there was this dance night, or like, you know, on this interactive game night where we'd sort of go into the circle and dance. And I remember just this feeling of like, oh shit, I don't want to do this. Like I'd look like an idiot. People are going to judge me, and, you know, all of these stories in my head. And like I was kind of just back to the wall, like kind of just not wanting to do it. And then I remember one of the leads, like one of the, you know, the ex-NYSFers who kind of just took my hand and said, oh, like, you know, just don't worry about what you might perceive or people might perceive of you, just do it. And I kind of just got inspired to just do it. Like I kind of just pushed through that wall, like what I was describing earlier. And then as soon as I pushed through it and then I started moving, all of that inhibition just melted. Like I could actually feel that sort of encasing melting away, and then it felt like I was spreading my wings and just flying, like, you know, the air going through my wings, kind of. It was really feeling like that, and after that, that's when I really realized, you know, life is about fun and liberation, and a lot of these conditions that people impose on you, it's just bullshit. Like, you know, you can get through it and really feel like yourself, and that's what I use as inspiration in future years to, you know, get through my body image challenges and other challenges and things like that. And I just remember like that instant was when I went from being like the very quiet sort of reserved kid to the kid that would be, you know, just the first to dance at a party. And yeah.
So you went to science camp, you discovered a breakthrough,
Yeah.
and that was actually ecstatic dance.
Yes,
And you worked out how to
exactly,
move
yeah.
into ecstatic dance.
Yeah.
What would you, I freaking love to dance as well. And it was
Yeah.
also something that I discovered later in life, like quite late in life. Like
Yeah.
I was also reserved about it. I used to be able to fake it on a dance floor. I used to be able to go on there. Like I've got this maybe overly big self-image of myself sometimes. So I could always go onto a dance floor and I could look kind of cool and feel like that I could make it, but I didn't know how to let go. And then I kind of learned how to let go. And now that I know how to let go on the dance floor, it's freaking amazing. As someone who's facilitated, I don't know how many ecstatic dance workshops you've done, and someone to dance the way that you do, to someone who's listening who doesn't know how to dance, or doesn't even know if they've actually experienced dance, what would you say to just get someone being like, oh, that's the experience I want to go and have?
Yeah, like it's I guess in an ecstatic dance space particularly, like it's about really unlocking the full spectrum of human movement. Like, you know, it's not about restricting yourself to what, you know, you dance in a club, like, you know, just shuffling around or just moving your shoulders, and like, you know, there's a lot more to human movement.
And doing a technique as well.
Yeah, or doing a technique. There's a lot more to human movement than just, you know, doing a particular technique or doing a particular sort of repetitive move. Like, you know, our bodies are meant to be moving in so many different ways, and, you know, that's how we evolved, like, you know, move with people. And it's the idea that you can kind of like the way I first started doing it, like, you know, and I learned this funnily enough at the NYSF back in year 11, where I first, like, when we had this disco night, and I was kind of watching people how they dance, and like rather than actually copy them, because as soon as you try to copy exactly, then you just trying to imitate or trying to conform to a particular move or style, but you use that as inspiration to move yourself. So you see, oh yeah, that, you know, that guy there's doing this kind of move, and then maybe I'll try moving that way, but then add my own twist to it, and then you kind of then just join different moves together in your own form.
It's like rap.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you see what they're doing, but then you do it with your twist, but then they see what you're doing, and then they do it with their twist, and then you're just like, you're dancing.
Exactly.
Like you're literally just dancing in that moment. It's just like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm like going to play with this person's dance thing.
Exactly. And then you can just keep escalating and like upping the ante, just like, you know, a rap battle, for example, and like, you know, just get to a point
God.
where
Yeah. That's such a good analogy, because there's a story that like I wanted to tell since talking this as well. Before that, I just also want to say one thing that's worked for me is literally just to move my body in a way that feels good. It sounds so obvious.
Yes.
But like quite often I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders, and my spine can be stiff, and maybe I sit in a chair too long. So I just start doing fucking yoga at the beginning. It's not I'm not holding a pose, but I'm rolling my shoulders, I'm moving my spine, I'm rolling my neck, and I'm just doing it in whichever way feels good for me to the music. And that quite often gets me into it. The rap battle with someone is the story that is just bursting out of me at the moment. I was at Jamson House with Brittany Terrell, and I just love this experience so much. I think we have talked about it, but I love it. It's a good one to probably have recorded. I had a friend there who was a salsa dance champion.
Yeah.
And I don't think she'd seen anything like ecstatic dance before, but she was an extremely good dancer, and she was very competitive. And I think she was Sri Lankan as well. And you came, from my recollection, you came and danced with her. And my observation of it was that when you started dancing with her, she immediately got you how to dance, and she had no idea what she stepped into, because the next minute you two were just fucking aliens on the dance floor, just doing the craziest things. I think you were on the floor, you were like spinning around, and you were crawling, and she just like dove into it, and she was like, I can dance. I don't care who this person is, but I can dance too. So then she just played back with it. And you got wilder, and then she got wilder, and you got wilder. And then there's this like circle of people who are just watching you two, just being like, I don't know what's going on right now, but it's amazing. It's just unfolding in front of us. Yeah, that was really cool. I loved observing that. Did you care to add any details that I may have got wrong there?
No, it was absolutely spot on. Like, and I just remembered that now again. I was like, wow, that was an amazing dance. And
that's because she's a good dancer. Like,
she was.
She wins competitions. She's a pro.
Oh,
right.
wow.
Yeah. Teacher, the works teacher as well, but like, teaching a structured style of dance. You're teaching this ecstatic style of dance, which is like, so somehow through totally different ways, you've actually both converged to a point where those two things can meet, right? Which is really cool.
And that was a very kind of unique experience in that way, because like, it's rare that, I'd meet on the dance floor someone who's so skilled in that professional form of dance. And then adapting to that, because that's one of the things I love doing, like adapting to a style in my own twist, and then just escalating, and then it just like what was created where that that free form, like non-structured force meets that really good structured force, and then like it just somehow worked, and like it was quite powerful.
Personally for me with dance, I feel like I've shortcutted the way to the end, which is just like the ecstatic dance and being able to get there. I wouldn't mind actually learning some techniques, like some literal techniques that I can throw in there as well. Because then I could, and then you've got like a technical trick that you can play within the trick bag. It's like, it's like the expression and the joy is tappable. I know how to get to that, and it's just like, I wonder if I can actually put really solid structure on this now, and end up getting to the same place that you guys or she was dancing to that day, just via the different road.
And I find where you can get those moves from doesn't necessarily even have to be different dance styles as well. Like it could just be any form of movement practice. Like it could be yoga, acro yoga. It could be like capoeira, like one of the other sort of hobbies of mine from years ago that like I got into, and like different martial arts, or
capoeira is the Brazilian dancing dance fight
thing, and like different sort of movement styles that you can kind of combine, and like as you move or learn different ways of moving, that just expands your repertoire, your body's degrees of freedom in a way, and then that just opens up more possibilities where you can just free form, like improvise different styles of movement. And
I'd like to see a dance-off. I'd like to see you organise a dance-off. I'm not sure if that's something in your cards, but I'd love to see a dance-off, like a proper facilitated, like you versus you, right? You
can definitely see some good fun happening
Oh,
there.
man, that'd be really fun to watch, cool. I've got a funny question for you, maybe to wrap it up. All right, so you've got to organise an event that fills Perth Stadium in 48 hours from now. How are you going to do it?
Oh, gee, okay. Like it will have to involve some sort of interaction as well. Like it won't just be what normally happens, per se, where you'll have someone on stage or someone performing or singing or DJing, but like ideally it'll have some sort of facilitated experience as well, where you get people to interact with each other in some way, whether it be building up the human connection aspect of things, and then that sort of playing with that to have people a bit more looser to be able to experience the journey with each other, as well as just observing what's going on, and I suppose like adding a few. Like again, in 48 hours, I'm not sure how much you can pull off, but like a little bit of that sort of that surprisey theatric experience. Like, I'm just imagining like people kind of coming down from different sort of, ropes and just interacting with the crowd, and
bunch of ninjas.
A bunch of ninjas or something coming out, and like, and then tying that into whatever the music or something's playing, and getting together, artists, and it's sort of what I would look into, or like I would be attempting to do, like something a bit more unique and human connection and human interaction based.
Cool. Sounds great. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Pasan.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. It was good fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Let's call it there.
Beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Pasan Tenakoon, and if you're still listening, I'm guessing you did. It'd be a huge favor for me. If you want to say thanks, it'd be a really easy way to say thanks by just clicking the like and the subscribe buttons down below. This really helps with YouTube algorithms for saying that this content is good and that it's something that you value. It helps to spread this content more organically amongst more people like you. So really appreciate your help there. Better still, come join us on the community platform on Patreon. Patreon is a place where communities can get together. Like-minded little groups can come together. They can support the creation of these kinds of things. They can connect with each other, and we'll create a whole bunch of tailored content just for the people who are in that community. So on there, we've got a heap of extra content and ways to get in contact with me directly, ways to get in contact with other people on the platform more easily, so that you can have a more active part in participating in the creation of all kinds of events from all over the world. And on that platform, we'll also be sharing a lot of details about the best event that's going to be happening anywhere on the globe in 2023. You're going to want to participate in it. You're going to want to be there, and we're going to put in all of the hottest details and the latest scoops and the best tips about how that you can have the best time at this event on Patreon. So do come and check that out. It's worth it. It's worth it, right? I really believe it's worth it. I think you're going to have a great time in there. So come check us out on Patreon. Ciao.